Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I have Maya coming down from Toronto to work on her Norfolk Island Pine forest. Here's a look at my forest, how it's looking today. It needs a prune. While I'm waiting for Maya, I'm going to work on my larch forest, pruning it up. Here is a look at my larch forest. So it's grown really well since the last pruning. The shoots up top near the apex of the trees have grown really long. Super vigorous up top. As you go down the trees, the vigor gets less and less. So the shoots are still extending at the bottom, but they're not vigorous like at the apex of the tree. So today I'm going to be balancing the vigor, pruning back the shoots on the top of the trees quite short, always leaving some of the new growth, and the shoots towards the bottom I'll be pruning less, so maybe just pinching the tips out of them. So that's what I'll be working on. Alright, here I go. I'll start up top here, pruning back, and I'm not looking for buds, I'm just pruning back to shorten them. Buds will form at the base of each one of these needles. You can see in the apex here that I have a lot of branching, too much branching. That causes the top of the tree to thicken up more than down lower. So you've got to really be careful that you don't let this vigor get out of hand, that you let these shoots elongate too much. They grow stronger and stronger every day, and it makes the top of the tree thicken too much. So that's why I'm doing it now, so I can reduce the vigor up top, balancing the vigor of the tree. And that's a process that's ongoing with larches, is you're always trying to balance the vigor of the tree, equalize the vigor so the top's growing just as strongly as the bottom. And that keeps the tree in balance. So you can see the apex is now pruned back. And I'll have to do some branch selection in this area also. It's just, as I said, too many branches. I can also prune out pluck out some of the older, longer needles. That allows more light to get down to the lower branches. And it also helps reduce the vigor at the top of the tree. Gets a little branch separation, which is good for airflow. Okay, I'll work my way down the tree now. And some of the branches, if they're really nicely placed, flowing outwards, you might want to leave them a little longer so they keep nice and vigorous. The ones that are shooting straight up, I prune back very short. I keep them alive, but I don't want them to, grow straight up. So I prune them off shorter, and maybe someday you'll get sort of zigzag branches from them, which could look really good. There's a close-up look at the apex on this tree. So I still have some sort of vertical shoots here. I'll reduce back even more. Always keeping just a little bit of the new growth. So this one flows out quite nicely towards the side, so I leave that a little longer. I have lots of videos of me pruning up this larch forest, so I'm not going to do a detailed pruning today. You'll just sort of see the before and the after. I'll put the link to the playlist in the description below. You'll notice on the larch as you prune them, you kind of develop like pads of foliage that are really thick and dense. And I don't worry about them too much in the summer, because in the winter time when all the needles fall off the trees, you get a look at the bare branches, and then you can prune the branch, really, a detailed prune for the structure to get a nice flowing structure, thinning out all these kind of crossing shoots and Yeah, so a detailed prune comes when the leaves are off the tree. I have finished pruning up my larch forest. So now you can see the separation in the branches. The branches on the interior of the forest here are getting more light, so they should stay nice and healthy. I'm expecting, at least another flush of growth on this forest before fall. And every flush of growth that happens, the needles get smaller and smaller. So by fall it should be looking quite miniature. And it's a possible candidate for the Toronto Fall Show. I'll show you some updates to some of my bonsai, so let's have a look. Here is a look at my Black Willow. I gave it a pruning. The shoots were getting really long, and all the leaves that were close to the trunk here, they got hit by the frost in spring and they didn't look very good. So I pruned it all back, and you can see on the branches there's buds forming all over it. I think summertime is a good time for pruning the willows, as long as you don't leave it too late in the summer. I don't think I would want to prune them past July. We've been getting some nice, warm, humid weather lately, perfect for ficus, and you can see they're starting to grow with some vigor now. I defoliated these trees before I brought them out in spring, and they're filling in quite nicely now. Starting to get a nice dense canopy on them. So they should be growing with a lot of vigor this next month. Maybe too much, but we'll see. The Schefflera is looking good too. It's come out into leaf quite nicely. And my willow leaf ficus that I pruned up and defoliated is continuing to leaf out nicely. It's looking very, very good. Over here, my elm tree that I defoliated and pruned up fairly recently, you can see all the leaves starting to come out now. It's starting to leaf out, which is exciting. I hope that all goes well. I hope I didn't do it too late in the summer, but I guess we'll find out how it does. My Austrian pine is looking good, nice and healthy. The two sacrifice branches up top are nice and strong, so I'll leave those on and for another year, or maybe two, maybe more. You can see they've developed their buds for next year, and they're nice and strong, so it should really help kind of even out the trunk. That's my goal, is to get it nice and smooth and maybe a little thicker. So the tree's doing really well. My two thujas, my root over rock, the witch's tree here is looking really healthy. It's doing well. And over here is my little cedar spirit tree, and it's also looking very lush up top. So I'm just kind of letting it grow for now, and then when it gets super healthy, I'll be pruning it back, looking for contorted branches. So I won't be pruning it for nice smooth flowing branches, but I'll be pruning it to sort of angular contorted branches to make the tree look like it's really, really struggling for survival. So at the moment they look very, very lush, which is not the kind of look I'm going for. It looks like Maya is running late today, so I'm going to go on and I'm going to prune up my Norfolk Island Pine forest. So here I go. Here is a look at the forest. Norfolk Island Pines are quite difficult to grow as bonsai. It's very hard to keep the lower branches. They're very apically dominant. They just want to grow on top, taller and taller. I'm going to prune the tops today, trying to create a triangular form to each tree. And I'm hoping by pruning the vigor out of the top that my bottom branches stay alive. Here's a look at the top of the tree, and you can see the branches kind of grow out in fronds. So I'm going to do a fairly severe pruning here. You could do a light pruning, like you could keep this branch and prune off the tip here and it would subdivide, but I think that's just too long. So I'm going to come back quite close to the trunk here and prune it off very short like that. So I'll do the same to this branch, keeping all these top branches quite short, and hopefully it'll keep the bottom branches alive. So I'm pruning between the needles here. And I've been doing this technique since I've had these trees, and I mean, it's successful in the fact that it's keeping the trees to a reasonable size, and it's keeping some of the lower branches, but it's a very difficult species to grow as a bonsai. Difficult to get, you know, triangular shaped trees. It's not hard to keep them alive. So I've got tree number 1 pruned into a conical shape, a triangular shape. So I'll work on the other trees now. So this one's a bit odd. It's the leader has been replaced many times. You can see it growing up here. You can see how these branches, I pruned them back and there's no growth on them. All the growth is up top, and that's typical of these Norfolk Island pines. That's why they're a hard subject for bonsai. So in this case, I'm going to prune this whole top off. I want to pick, you know, one of these branches that's alive as my new leader. So from the front, I think this is a good candidate. It comes out front, so I will prune off the whole top of the tree right here. So here I go. I'll leave a bit of a stub. Big cut coming up. Just like that, taking the whole top off that tree. So down below I do have some branches that are growing, so I'm just going to prune the tips back on those, shortening them a little bit. Like that, so that's got that tree pruned up to a conical form. I'll do the tree behind it now. So this tree, I'm just going to, the apex isn't too high, I'm just going to prune all this new growth back. And I keep the trees in the greenhouse here, out of direct hot sun. I keep them down on the floor of the greenhouse where it's cooler, it's a little more shady. They seem to be quite happy there. They seem to be growing really well. So I'll work on this tree now. So this one again, it has a few lower branches that are very weak, but most of the vigor is up top. And I've kind of got a double apex going here. So my back branch here, this is a branch and this is the leader up front. I'll prune it to a frond that's facing outwards. So I'll prune the tip off this branch here, like that. And then I'll prune these branches up, shortening them. Like that. So that gets that back to a kind of a back branch. Now here's my apex. I think this branch, oh, that's already been pruned. So this one, this is a branch, I'll prune it back short. This is a branch. Pruning all this growth up top, tight to the trunk, in an effort to get a conical form to the tree. And here's my leader, I'll just prune that back too. Like that, I think that's got that tree pruned up. So I've got a few more of the smaller trees to go now. So I'll do this one next. Again, it has a leader here and this is a branch, so I will prune the branch back shorter. You can see the old needles on the trunk, they've turned brown. They'll eventually fall off. Okay, that's got that tree pruned up. Okay, so I'll do the one behind it now, right in here. Looking for my leader, which is right here, and pruning all the other branches off shorter. So these trees are getting quite old now. They can look really nice as the new growth is coming out. And I've been keeping them fairly small. And it seems to be working quite well. It's keeping the trees to size, fairly miniature. So that tree's pruned up. Now I've got these ones to do. So here's my leader. Prune the branches back. And you've always got to leave the trees grow and gain vigor before you do this pruning. If you prune a weak tree, it's just going to wither away and die. So it's important to have some vigor in the trees. There's a moth flying around there somewhere. Where did it go? Okay, and I have another tree back here. This is a twin trunk, so I've got to do this part of it. Again, pruning my branches back. Like that. And that has got the forest pruned up. Let's step back and have a look at it. Here is a look at the forest now after pruning. So I still do have some lower branches, but not a lot. It tends to keep growing higher and higher. I'm trying to keep the height under control, but yeah, I don't know how successful I am. I'm not getting much, back budding on the trunks. Maybe that'll come someday. I don't know. So that's the forest all pruned up. I think it's looking reasonable. And it looks best when all the new growth starts coming in. Right now they're looking a little sparse, but yeah, so that's the forest. The other day I was looking at this pot and I noticed something quite unusual on the pot about the feet. Let me show you that. Here's a look at the pot. And what I found, I was looking at the front of the forest, which is here in the oval shape of the pot. And I noticed the feet are offset. This foot is over towards the left. This one's over towards the left. Yeah, so I've never seen that on a pot before, that the feet aren't kind of lined up with the shape of the pot. So I found that kind of unusual. So if you're putting this in a show, it would look a little unusual because the feet aren't symmetrical. This foot needs to be moved over more. It's just something I noticed on this pot, and it's something to keep in mind when you're buying a pot, is to have a look at the feet and the placement on the bottom. Maya and I worked on her Norfolk Island Pine forest, so here is the result. There's the forest. It's looking quite nice. The trees turned out really good. They were really, really heavy. We reduced the height of them. The thickest trunks are the tallest trees. Brought them into a conical shape and planted them in the forest. So that's what it looks like today. Hopefully they will do well. We didn't do any root pruning. We just arranged the roots in the pot the best we could, bare rooted them, and put them in bonsai soil. So that's what the forest looks like. I think it's looking quite good. It's an excellent start to a new forest. This tree over here wasn't looking good, so we potted it up separately, hoping it survives, but we didn't want to put it in the forest because it may not make it. It was looking, not so good when she brought it here. Here is Ian and Maya with the forest, the new forest. I think it looks good. Do you like it, Ian?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. It's a little more compact too. You don't have to have two pots now. Yeah, I think, and hopefully that other one will survive, eh?
I think it's going to survive.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think it will survive.
Yeah, just keep them, you can't overwater that soil. You just water it once a day or twice a day. Whenever you notice it's starting to dry out, just give it a water again and it should do fine. Keep it out of the full sun, and yeah, here's Maya with her forest. Well, I hope it does really well, Maya. I think it's off to a good start.
It is. It is.
And I just...
it is. It's beautiful.
So you'll want to add a little bit of fertilizer to your water and just keep it watered well and fertilized well and out of the full sun, and keep it in a bright area.
The next thing I want to do is I want to put moss.
Yes, that'll be the finishing touches.
Maybe if I get enough.
Moss and rocks and things, and
yeah,
that would look really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the basic arrangement's good, and the trees are pruned up. I think it's looking quite nice.
This is safe, is it?
It should be, yeah. Yeah, as long as the root tips go into the soil.
There's a lot in there.
Yeah. Yeah, you can always put some moss around there too. It'll hold moisture against the roots. If you find a bit of moss somewhere, you can kind of... That was a fun day of putting together that Norfolk Island Pine forest. That is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.